Out of the two books that I chose for this assignment is called Ian's Walk, A Story About Autism by Laurie Lears. Ian and his two older sisters decide to go to the park one day. And on the way there, Ian does things a little bit differently than his sisters do, and that can cause some frustration for them. However, they get to the park, and the older sister wanted to go get some pizza, but Ian decides just to eat cereal instead and doesn't want pizza. So Julia, the youngest one, watches Ian. And she tends to get frustrated with Ian a bunch with how he handles his autism and when communicating with other people and being around other children. However, she forgets to look where Ian is, and Ian wanders off. And when the older sister comes back, they see that he is gone, and how they decide to go and try to find him. And they're running around the park trying to find Ian, see where he is, asking all these people, and eventually the sister Julia just realizes she needs to stop what she's doing and put herself in his shoes. So she ends up closing her eyes and thinking, where would Ian be? Where would he want to go? Instead of where all these other people say that he might be. And she immediately says, oh, he has to be where the bells are. He loves bells. And eventually they find each other and they give him a huge hug, but he's like, why are you so happy to see me? He doesn't realize that he was even missing. Well, Julia, the sister, realizes that she needs to put herself in his shoes from now on and appreciate the little things, because he goes through a lot every day, and this can be a good use for children and families, because all families go through situations and they don't know what to do if they have a sibling with autism. And so it's really good for the older sister to try to relate to their sibling, and their families get to know each other and spend time together instead of just, being frustrated with each other all the time. And that's it about that book. My second book that I chose, called Moses Sees a Play. This is by Isaac Millman. I chose this book because Moses, he is deaf, and he is in school. Well, in the classroom, they're learning to communicate by sign language. That's the only way they can communicate. With this book, I thought it was pretty cool because they have a bunch of pictures showing, how to communicate with sign language. And in the story, Moses makes a new friend. He's new to the class, and so he comes in, and Moses immediately welcomes him in by giving him sign language. But this boy doesn't really necessarily know how to use sign language, so instead they're using gestures to each other, and so it's really fun how the book shows pictures of how he does his gestures for his new friend. Well, so they're on the way to the cafeteria, and this is where the play is in the cafeteria, and the play is about Cinderella. For the Cinderella play, the performers decided to use sign language so all the children can see what they were talking about, how they could relate to each other. So it was pretty cool. After the whole play was finished, see all these different sign languages that the play used to demonstrate to the children what the story was about. And so as you're reading the book, they're showing you how you can use the sign language yourself if you would like to. At the end of the story, the play, Moses was asking the teacher by sign language as well if they could do a play in the classroom just with themselves, and how they can communicate better by doing sign language. And so I thought that was pretty cool that he got really involved by just one play in the school to want to do something for himself as well in the classroom. And I think that's that's a good use. This is a good use for a family and children, because it gives them courage to, they can do it on their own, that they can use sign language to communicate with other people they don't know, or use gestures that with a person that just comes into the room and they don't know them either. You know, deaf can be a hard communication skill because you can't hear anything that anybody's saying to you. And so I feel like this book could relate to a lot of children to help them perform better in the class, better at home. And it was funny because the whole time Moses had a great attitude, you know, and he gave a lot of energy to his new pal friend, and he really enjoyed this play. And so that's why I chose this book and Ian's Walk, because they're both different from each other with deaf and autism, but they both can be very helpful for families and children because we all have a different disability, and reading books about them can really help you indicate what you can go through, what other people have gone through. And that's why I chose these two books.